Made with Spoken. Celestial Convergence Dragons of Vacari No. 3 by T.A. McEvoy. Digital narration, performed by multiple digital voices. The trees of emerald wood swayed gently in the afternoon breeze, emerald leaves scattering light like jeweled canopies. A faint warmth lingered in the air, edged with the scent of lightning-kissed pine. Then the birds fell silent, and the wind shifted, carrying something more. A presence. Lord Caranan paused at the clearing's edge, his gaze lifting skyward. Beside him, Lysander's trident shimmered with a sea-blue glow. Sensing the divine before sight confirmed it. Cadona's golden cloak caught the wind as she tilted her head, already smiling faintly. A vast shadow swept across the treetops. Moments later, a dragon descended with majestic grace, wings folding like silken banners of starlight. Platinum scales gleamed like forged moonlight as his massive form touched down beyond the trees, the earth quivering softly beneath his weight. Radiantus had returned. Cadona drew a quiet breath, her eyes flicking to Lysander and Caranan. Even for them, the moment held weight. Radiantus did not descend lightly.
Well now,
she said with a warm laugh, stepping forward.
We do not often see you beyond the heavens.
Radiantus inclined his head, voice resonant yet calm.
I arrived only recently. When I sensed your presence, yours, Lysander's and Lord Caranan's, I came to see why you traveled toward Crystal Vale.
Caranan bowed slightly.
My daughter Keisha sent for us. She says there is a matter requiring divine attention, something unusual, possibly dangerous.
Cadona's gaze lingered on Radiantus, thoughtful.
Then perhaps you should join us. If Keisha calls upon the gods, you may well be needed.
Radiantus studied her for a long moment, starlight flickering in his eyes.
I agree.
His wings lifted slightly, scattering platinum light.
If the matter is urgent, climb onto my back. I will carry us faster than magic or foot.
Lysander arched a brow.
Then do not let us fall, Radiantus.
A low rumble echoed from the dragon's chest, a rare chuckle.
You have my word.
One by one, the god, the goddess, and the elven lord climbed onto his back. With a single mighty beat, Radiantus rose, emerald woods shrinking into a jeweled sea beneath them. Far to the east, an emerald dragon tilted her head mid-flight. The light across the canopy shimmered strangely, and the wind carried something ancient. Then she saw him, a dragon, platinum as moonlit steel, soaring with 3 figures upon his back. Verdantia's eyes widened. Radiantus. She veered south, green scales flashing as she raced toward the forest's heart. He had once mentored her through her first flight into battle. Their bond was more than respect. It was a legacy. She had to tell the others. She, high above Crystal Vale, Radiantus descended with reverence, wings folding as he touched down near the inner grove. The land still bore scars of battle-charred roots, torn soil, trees blackened by shadow. Cadona's smile dimmed, resolve hardening. Renewal pulsed here, but so did loss. Radiantus turned toward the grove where Aurelia lay, her crystalline body, once radiant with prismatic light, dimmed with exhaustion. Struggling, she tried to rise. Radiantus lowered his head, his voice warm, kind.
No, Aurelia, rest.
Her eyes met his. She huffed softly, then eased back down. He remembered her in war, shielding his flank at High Aramor, her wings bearing the strike meant for him. Seeing her now stirred a vow deep within him. She would rise again. He would see to it. The wind shifted once more. Verdantia descended, regal and radiant, her emerald presence carrying the scent of renewal. She dipped her head.
Welcome home, Radiantus. Vacari is brighter for your return.
Radiantus bowed, solemn.
I have been gone too long.
Caranan knelt beside Aurelia, pressing a hand to her scales. Gentle light pulsed from his palm.
She is healing. The wounds no longer worsen, but no battles, no flights. The damage runs deep.
Aurelia blinked slowly in gratitude. Radiantus turned to the others.
Do you know what Keisha asks of us?
No,
Aurelia murmured, her voice faint as crystal chimes.
She sent only urgency.
Verdantia added. Radiantus inclined his head.
Then rest, Aurelia. You have given enough.
Verdantia spread her wings.
I must return to Emerald Woods. Call if danger rises.
She lifted skyward, vanishing in emerald light. Cadona turned to Radiantus with a sly smile.
If you walk with us through the city, perhaps appear smaller unless you wish to clear rooftops as you go.
Radiantus laughed, a deep, thunderous sound.
Very well.
He hesitated, reverent, then closed his eyes. Light shimmered, scales dissolving into threads of brilliance, until a tall figure stood where the dragon had been, a man of sun-warmed bronze, robed in silver, his hair gleaming platinum, his eyes ageless with starlight.
Would this be better?
Cadona laughed. Lysander clapped his shoulder. Even Karenan's lips twitched.
Well,
Lysander said.
You will turn heads, certainly.
And turn heads he did. As the divine quartet entered Crystal Vale, whispers spread like wildfire. Work stilled. People bowed. Eyes widened as Radiantus walked among them in mortal guise, flanked by gods and an elven lord. The gods had come, and with them change walked beside the wind. Radiantus glanced skyward, as though reading a name written in fate. The winds of destiny had stirred before, but now they carried choices, consequences. He walked on, knowing the next storm would not wait long. The palace gates loomed ahead, gold and emerald carvings flashing beneath the midday sun. Etched with the crests of Vacari's noble houses and the ancient sigils of elvenkind, they stood as much a symbol of power as of protection. The guards posted there were usually unshakable and trained to recognize kings, nobles, and dignitaries from across the realms. But today they stared. Hands hovered near hilts, posture stiffening at the sight of the approaching company. Two gods, a high elven lord, and a stranger whose very presence thrummed with contained power. Radiantus, veiled in his human form, walked with effortless grace beside Cadona and Lysander. His hair shimmered like molten platinum beneath the sun, starlight threading through his aura, as though a dream had taken flesh. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. One shifted his stance, caught between duty and awe. Another opened his mouth, faltered, then quickly bowed as his eyes moved from Karenan's serene composure to the overwhelming weight of Radiantus's presence. Cadona stepped forward, her voice cutting through the hesitation like sunlight through mist.
We have been summoned by Lady Keisha and by King Menard himself.
At the king's name, the guards straightened at once.
Of course.
One stammered, bowing low.
This way, my lady, my lord, sir.
Flustered by the unfamiliar figure, he stumbled over the title. Radiantus only offered a faint, knowing smile, a kindness wrapped in mystery. As they were escorted through the gates, Lysander let out a low chuckle, drawing a sidelong glance from Cadona.
They will be speaking of this for weeks,
he murmured, his amusement rich.
Poor lads likely believe a star spirit has wandered into the palace.
Cadona smirked, but did not correct him. Karenan, ever composed, said nothing, though the faintest twitch of his lips betrayed his agreement. Their footsteps echoed along the main corridor. Nobles and servants slowed mid-stride, gawking openly as whispers rose in their wake like leaves caught on a divine wind.
That is a god, too. No, three, wait. Who is that? Look at his eyes. Is that starlight?
At last, they reached the double doors of the council chamber. The lead guard hesitated, gathered his nerve, then pushed them wide and bowed deeply.
Your guests have arrived, my king.
Radiantus, Cadona, Lysander, and Lord Karenan stepped inside. The murmurs of the hall died as the doors swung shut with a muted thud, sealing the chamber in a hush, like the air before a storm. Radiantus's gaze swept across the gathered faces, not cold, but weighted with attentive gravity. His eyes lingered on Valion, a heartbeat longer. Not judgment, not warmth. Observation measuring the heart of one about to confess. At the far end of the table, Ong turned toward the door, half ready with a dry remark.
You're a bit
The words broke off. His eyes fixed not on Cadona or Karenan, but on the tall, radiant figure beside them. Platinum-haired, robed in silver, each movement steeped in something not quite mortal. Ong blinked, then looked to Gylon, to Manard. Both only shrugged. Off to the side, Keisha hid a smile behind her hand. Laughter had not yet broken, but it hovered, waiting. She stepped forward, as graceful as ever, and inclined her head with quiet warmth.
Welcome home, Radiantus. Though I must say, seeing you in this form is unusual.
Radiantus pressed a hand to his chest in mock offense, his eyes widening theatrically.
Keisha, how dare you spoil the surprise? I rehearsed this entrance every step.
That was enough. Even Thalorian, stoic, unflinching Thalorian, let out a short, startled laugh. The sound cracked through the tension like stone giving way, as though the foundations of the universe had tilted for a heartbeat. Cadona only raised a brow, lips twitching at the corners, amusement restrained. Yet her eyes betrayed the truth. She, more than any of them, remembered why the gods had come and that this fragile levity would not last. Keisha glanced toward Kalorn. His arms were folded, his expression calm, but the faintest glimmer of a smirk lit his eyes. Ong squinted at Radiantus, frowning hard.
All right,
he said, waving vaguely toward the too-perfect stranger.
who is this, and do not just give me a name?
The laughter broke like a wave. Cadona braced a hand against a chair, shoulders shaking. Lysander chuckled openly, tossing his hair back in careless amusement. Even King Manard, the image of composure, struggled not to smile, his lips twitching as his poise slipped. By the window, Valion looked utterly lost, his brow furrowed as his eyes darted from face to face, searching for context he did not possess.
Are we meant to know him? Or did we all collectively forget a visiting king?
Ong did not so much as smirk. He crossed his arms with a grunt, unimpressed. If this was some royal jest, some private game between gods and kings, he wanted no part of it. He shook his head.
Forget it, I do not want to know.
At last Keisha caught her breath, still smiling despite herself.
Meet Radiantus,
She said softly, warmth in her voice.
the platinum dragon.
Silence. 4 sets of eyes, Ong, Gylon, Manard and Valion stared at the radiant figure. Then, as though orchestrated by the gods themselves, their jaws dropped in perfect unison. Ong's scowl deepened. He shot Keisha a look edged with betrayal, then jabbed a thumb toward Radiantus.
How do you know that? That is a man, not a dragon.
At that, even Thalorian's stoic, unflinching Thalorian broke. A bark of laughter tore free, raw and startled. He stumbled into a chair, shoulders shaking, eyes wide with disbelief. Radiantus only arched a brow in quiet amusement, a subtle gleam in his gaze betraying delight at the chaos. Keisha gave up all pretense of composure. Her grin was irrepressible. Lord Caranan turned toward Ong, his tone dry as desert stone.
You have lived in Everhona for years, surrounded by silver dragons in their human forms, and still you ask this?
Ong opened his mouth, closed it again, and muttered darkly,
That is different.
Laughter rippled louder through the chamber. Keisha drew in a breath, forcing her voice back to steadiness.
Most metallic dragons can shift forms on. Radiantus is no different. He is more radiant about it.
A flicker of eye contact passed between her and Cadona, brief but heavy. The goddess's smile had already faded, shadowed by an unspoken weight. Keisha saw it, and though her lips curved in humor, the light behind them dimmed. She gestured toward Radiantus.
Think for a moment. If he had walked through Crystal Vale in his true form,
She let the thought hang.
this palace would be rubble before sunset.
King Manard finally chuckled, low and reluctant. Then we should be grateful for restraint. Radiantus pressed his hand to his chest with mock dignity.
I tread very carefully, I will have you know.
Keisha's laugh rang once more, quick and bright, before she turned toward the long table.
All right, let us sit.
Her tone softened, though steel edged it again.
Take your breath. We have matters of weight to discuss.
Chairs scraped against polished stone as the laughter ebbed, leaving only anticipation in its wake. The mirth was gone. But the storm still waited on the horizon. Keisha turned to King Manard, her gaze thoughtful, though a faint glimmer of humor lingered in her eyes.
Perhaps we should order emerald punch and crystal berries before we begin. Give everyone a moment to recover.
Manard gave a dry chuckle and rang a silver bell. Within moments an attendant appeared, accepted his order and slipped out. The silence that followed was not empty, it breathed. Chairs creaked, sleeves whispered, armor gave a faint clink. Even Pumpkin, lounging at Ong's side, flicked her tail in slow, steady arcs, each thump a quiet metronome of waiting. Beneath it all, tension coiled tighter, invisible, unrelenting. Valion sat rigid, fists flexing against his knees.
Are they humoring me? Waiting until the gods have eaten? Will judgment fall when the last bite is gone?
He stared down at the polished wood before him, faces shimmering faintly in its reflection, half familiar, half feared. The door creaked open. He flinched. The attendant returned with trays of emerald punch, crystal berries glistening like dew, and sugar-dusted pastries. Sweetness drifted into the air, softening the tension but only on the surface. Valion swallowed hard. Fear clung to his tongue, bitter, unmoved by sugar. Lysander set down his untouched glass and gave Maynard a quiet nod. The king straightened. His voice was steady, but iron lay beneath it.
We are gathered, and though there is much we might speak of, I will allow Keisha to explain why we are truly here.
Every gaze shifted. Keisha did not answer at once. She turned to Valion instead, calm, steady, though her eyes carried the full weight of truth.
You may tell them,
she said gently.
Or I can.
Valion looked down at his hands. Fists. Palms. Fists again. Slowly he rose, as though lifting himself from beneath a stone that refused to shift.
I will.
The gods, the king, the warriors. Every eye was fixed on him. And he spoke. He told them of the first summons that had dragged him into Fel Thalor. Of the figure cloaked in shadow who bent his will. How he had refused to kill Gailon, only to be forced into revealing enough for an obsidian dragon to strike. How he had been summoned repeatedly, dodging, deflecting, but always betraying more than he meant, and how he had failed to warn them. Of the ambush, of the wounds, of Aurelia, of Keisha. He gave them everything. No one interrupted, no one looked away. When at last the words were done, silence fell, not disbelief, not outrage, but the solemn stillness that comes only after truth is laid bare. Lord Caranan turned to Keisha. His voice was low.
It is a grave matter, but why summon us?
Keisha met his gaze, unflinching, her eyes clear with resolve.
Because you needed the history before I revealed what has not yet been spoken.
Her gaze shifted first to Valion, then to Cadona. The weight in the chamber climbed higher. Even Pumpkin stilled, ears pricked, emerald eyes sharp. The air thickened, every breath drawn tight. For a heartbeat, the world itself seemed to pause. The moment before the storm breaks. The last echoes of laughter had long since faded. Only a heavy, watchful silence remained. Cadona leaned forward, her hands resting on the polished table. Her bright, discerning gaze locked on Keisha.
What have you or Valion not told us?
She asked evenly.
That required summoning gods and your father?
A subtle shift rippled through the chamber. Lysander stilled, his expression unreadable. Gailon's fingers curled tight against the table's edge. There was no accusation in Cadona's tone, only certainty. She knew Keisha too well to think she would call upon the divine for something trivial. Keisha inclined her head, her voice steady, yet weighted with more than grief.
You are right. If this were only about Valion's betrayal, I would not have asked for your presence.
She paused, letting the words gather like storm clouds.
It goes deeper than that.
The quiet sharpened, every ear strained for what would come next. Keisha lifted her chin, her gaze passing from Lysander to Cadona, then to King Maynard, then to Lord Caranan.
What we face is not bound to one man's guilt. It is larger, older, something that reaches far beyond what we were prepared to confront.
The words themselves were simple. The weight behind them was not. Unease stirred the chamber. The shadow of what drew them here had only begun to take shape. Radiantus, silent until now, shifted. Starlight clung faintly to his human form, his eyes sharpening ancient, piercing as he studied Keisha.
What is it, Keisha?
His voice was low, commanding.
I sense more than betrayal in this room.
His gaze flicked to Valion, measuring, weighing.
Though simple is not the word I would choose,
he added dryly.
Still, considering we were summoned, and that you are not in chains, Valion, something greater must be at stake.
The air seemed to hold its breath. Keisha nodded, her expression somber.
You are right.
She turned fully toward Valion, her voice firm yet not unkind.
Valion, explain to them why you did what you did, and
She pressed the word gently, yet with unmistakable clarity.
explained what the figure told you when you tried to refuse, when you said this should not involve you.
At the mention of the figure, tension rippled through the chamber like a drawn bowstring. Thalorian's hand twitched near his hilt. Ong's shoulders squared. Even Lysander and Cadona, usually serene, grew taut, their divine senses sharpening like blades. All eyes turned to Valion, waiting. He rose slowly, knees stiff not from weariness, but from the weight bearing down on him. Centuries of power and memory stared through him. A faint itch crawled up his spine, the echo of old fear. He drew a steadying breath, glanced at Keisha, then fixed his gaze on the others. Their eyes pressed against him heavily, expectant, wary. But he met them anyway.
The mysterious figure.
His voice was low but steady.
They summoned me to fell Thalor, dragged me there against my will.
The chill of memory sank into his bones.
When I arrived, they told me I was still bound to them by the pact my father made with Milgram Shadowwalker.
A more resounding ripple shivered through the room. Valion gripped the back of his chair, nails biting wood.
I argued. I told them the pact should have ended with my father's death. I remember clenching my fists until the skin on my knuckles broke. Years of rage poured out of me. I swore whatever promises he made should have died with him.
He lifted his head, voice taut.
But they insisted. The binding remained. It did not matter who swore it or why.
A grim smile touched his lips.
And when I refused, when I said I wanted no part of it,
He hesitated.
they nearly killed me.
The words fell like stones into water. No one moved. No one spoke. Only the sound of breathing filled the chamber, slow, strained as though the world itself had grown less safe. Lysander leaned forward, calm yet implacable.
Explain the agreement, Valion. Everything you know, what was gained and what was lost, especially what you and your mother received or did not.
Valion nodded once, standing rigid, anchored against the weight of his own confession.
My father made the pact during the Druki conflict, when war threatened the Flameford borders. He swore a blood oath to Maelgrim, gaining power, political favor, and protection. And not just for himself, he pledged our entire family line.
Disgust twisted his features.
He gained standing almost overnight. Doors opened. Alliances bent. He was untouchable. But my mother, she received nothing. No wealth, no protection. He never returned. She scraped to survive while he played the noble.
Valion's hands tightened.
My mother lived in poverty while he hoarded his power.
At last he met their eyes, no longer flinching.
That is the truth.
Radiantus studied him, starlight flickering in his gaze.
How old were you when the pact was forged, and have you lived in Vacari since?
Valion exhaled, shoulders stiff.
I was barely 4, perhaps 5. My mother knew it was not safe. When I turned 12, she paid to smuggle me into Itharion, a hidden refuge within Vacari, with only a handful of coins and a warning never to look back. Oh.
His fists clenched again, then slowly eased.
She told me I was no fighter, that surviving there by wit and speed was my only chance.
Radiantus's gaze deepened, the weight of ancient knowledge stirring behind his eyes.
So you were never meant for war?
A low rumble stirred in his chest, not judgment, but contemplation. Lord Caranin folded his hands upon the table, his voice calm yet firm.
From what we know, this figure has no right to enforce the pact. Even if Phoenix Shadowwalker still lived, the claim would have ended with Valion's father. Blood oaths pass only if all bound parties consent or receive the bargainer's favor. Valion did not. His mother did not. The line was never sealed. In such cases, the bond dies with the one who forged it.
His gaze swept the chamber.
The figure may know of the pact, but they cannot enforce it. Not Phoenix, not Maelgrim, not whatever shadow lingers now.
Radiantus inclined his head slowly.
Agreed.
Valion stood stunned. His brow furrowed as the words sank in. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Fear did not vanish in an instant, but something small, fragile began to loosen in his chest. Around the table, silence held. Gylon's jaw clenched, betrayal still raw. Ong's fingers tapped restlessly against his hilt. Cadona's gaze remained steady, unreadable. Lysander narrowed his eyes, listening to echoes no one else could hear. Then Caelorn leaned forward, catching the flicker in Valion's expression. He turned to the gods.
Why would this figure claim Valion was still bound?
Lysander inclined his head. His voice was calm, cutting.
They knew Valion was not forged for defiance. They preyed upon fear. Manipulation thrives in cracks left by doubt.
Valion flinched, but Lysander's tone anchored him.
But they also found something they did not expect.
The sea god continued.
Valion refused certain orders, refused, even in fear. That is strength.
The gods exchanged a glance, silent agreement sparking like a current. Lysander's voice sharpened.
Steps must be taken to ensure this shadow never touches Valion again. I propose that Radiantus, Cadona, and I convene with the Council of the Gods. We will deliver a warning.
A faint sea-blue shimmer flared around him.
They will be told, cross this line again, and face the wrath of the heavens.
Radiantus inclined his head, his voice like closing gates.
I agree, the time has come.
He turned to Keisha, his gaze warm.
You were right to summon us. This was never for mortal judgment alone. It required the hand of the divine.
Keisha bowed her head, a breath of relief slipping free. The weight she had carried, calling Radiantus down from the heavens, eased, though not completely. Then Radiantus looked to Valion, platinum eyes fixing him in place. Valion's breath caught, not with fear but with the crushing weight of being seen fully. Not as a pawn, not as a suspicion, as a soul laid bare.
For now,
Radiantus said, his voice steady as stone,
we will deal with the one who dares reach beyond their rightful grasp.
Then his tone hardened.
As for you, Valion, you must still face those you have wounded. Apologize if you have not. More than that, listen.
His gaze swept to King Manard, Gylon, Ong, Keisha, and Thalorian.
It is theirs to decide what place, if any, you still hold among them.
A tremor passed through Valion. Not fear, something quieter. The weight of a second chance. He bowed his head low.
I will, and thank you.
Radiantus inclined his head, offering neither pardon nor condemnation. Only truth. Around the table the tension eased, just enough to breathe. But the road ahead for Valion and for Vacari remained unwritten.
Professional audiobooks in a click. Spoken.